What's up, guys? My name is Drake, and Paul's with me here. We are Why We Game, the channel where we play games, review games, and tastefully disagree. Today we were discussing The Last of Us in preparation for The Last of Us 2, which drops June 19th. And before we start, a quick recap of what Last of Us is.
Yeah, so we actually recently played the original Last of Us, the remastered version for the PlayStation 4. Now, I don't have a PlayStation 4 Pro, but we do have like the original PS4. And Drake had actually not played it, so he came over. We had a good time. It took us about 2 or 3 nights probably to finish the game. Yeah. He played, I watched, and judged the entire time. But to recap the game, if you're brand new or maybe you've forgotten, and you want to go over the first one, the story is another zombie apocalypse game. And before you get like, oh gosh, another one, it's actually one of the better ones. It's story-driven narrative, very linear game, and it's telling a fantastic story. And you start with a character named Joel, who seems to be like a middle-aged guy. He's got somewhere between like a 12 to 14-year-old daughter. In the very beginning of the game, you see the start of the zombie apocalypse. People are turning. It's getting crazy outside. You have like a brief moment of just kind of like figure out what's going on, and then everything goes to hell, right? I'm not going to tell you how, but he unfortunately loses his daughter. And then we fast forward roughly 20 years into the future, and we are well into the apocalypse now. Zombies running around everywhere, all different kinds of zombies. Overgrowth in all the big cities. It looks like a giant like city safari. It's very, very cool and very, very immersive. The 20 years into the future, we've got Joel, who is I guess he's smuggling is probably the correct way to say it. He's smuggling things in and out of like what would you call it? Like a sanction?
Yeah, like a government-run sort of area where they have sort of martial law, things in and out of it for things that they're not allowed to have within the compound.
Sure. So that's how Joel gets down. He's sort of taken a role as he's definitely not a do-gooder at this point, right? So he's smuggling things, like even things such as guns, right? So he goes on in the very beginning of the mission, the first mission of the game, you're going on a gun run essentially, and you get caught up with this organization called the Fireflies, and the Fireflies, long story short, convince you and your partner Tess to go on a mission to carry these goods into the middle of Boston and to deliver these goods to another group. Well, the goods end up being this girl named Ellie, who you find out eventually was bitten by a zombie, which in this world means that you turn into a zombie, much like any other zombie experience, except they usually turn within a day or two. And we find out that Ellie had been bitten roughly 3 weeks ago, and people are believing, the small group of people that know are believing that she carries the cure, and we need to get to her lab, create vaccines, and so on. So the game ends up going from when you meet Ellie all the way to the goal, which is a Firefly laboratory out in Salt Lake City, Utah. So everything that we're going to discuss actually happens between Boston and Salt Lake City, between 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, and then winter, and then I guess back to spring. So almost roughly a year's time.
So I think it's important that when you're reviewing or trying to understand what this game is, that it is obviously a single-player game, but what kind of single-player game is it? So there's, in my mind, an important distinction that has to be made in single-player games is you have single-player games where you interact with the world and single-player games where you interact mainly with the story. And so with the world, it's games like Fallout or Skyrim, and you're put into a place where you make a character and you can kind of make decisions and kind of have a story, but it's really the world you experience. In this sort of Last of Us game, you're put into the world not as yourself or someone you create, but as a character that's already made as a preset, sort of like more similar to The Witcher, and you play out that story throughout the gameplay, and it's set linear for you. Now, I've always been in the camp, at least previous to this, where I've always much preferred, and that's my bias, much preferred more open world games or games that let you do whatever you want, and I can go to this mountain and go here and find a dungeon and kill something and conquer it and have a great time. But I think that what that lacks and what Last of Us does very well in its linear game is telling a story, is that narrative, is telling a specific story, and it has certain points it wants to hit on, and it makes you think about certain moral dilemmas and certain characters that develop in a certain particular kind of way. What do you think about that?
I do. I think that you're absolutely right, and I think the essential part of this video game that's going to be telling the story is your connection with the characters. Your connections with the characters is one of the reasons why this game stands above all and is widely considered a classic. So if you haven't touched 2013's The Original Last of Us, you can get it remastered for the PS4. You need to check it out. The character development between Joel and the relationship between him and Ellie is fantastic.
You know what? This isn't that bad.
Why don't you try to get some sleep? Right.
I'm not even tired.
We're talking about characters that go from like right off the bat when you're talking about Joel, like I did recapping the story. He loses his daughter, and you can tell like it's very emotional. It's the music, it's the atmosphere, the facial expressions, it's everything. You can just feel it, right? And then you have Ellie on the other hand, who's just sort of comes across in the very beginning when you meet her as like this castaway. People keep trying to like put her onto other people's plates, I guess. Not like literally, you know, I mean, you have to say that because it's a zombie game. People get eaten. Not literally, but what I'm saying is like, they just kind of like keep pushing her off to people like, no, you can be responsible. No, you can be responsible. And she doesn't really, she just feels like she doesn't really have a home.
Idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
On top of being 13, 14 years old, you kind of feel her growth through her like puberty, you know what I'm saying? Like just growth into young adulthood, right? You see that left, right, and center. And the interactions between them, while in the very beginning is actually very rough and Joel kind of takes like a very hard-ass approach, Ellie sort of kind of gives it back to him a little bit, and they actually grow to rely on each other through the entirety of the story. It was actually really, really funny because we're sitting here and we're playing, and I'm watching Drake experience the game for the first time, and you're playing as Joel, like you know, especially like through the first half of the game. So you're playing as Joel, and he grew so frustrated. He grew so frustrated with Ellie, man.
When I started, because she was kind of not helpless. Some people call her the helpful AI, but like she was just in the way. She would attack things sometimes, or the AI doesn't see her necessarily, but she's standing up and like, Ellie, get down. They can see you, but she's still standing up, and it's very. If anything breaks immersion, it would be that.
Ellie, this is our chance. Move up. Ellie, what are you doing? Ellie, get down. You're gonna get us both caught. Ellie, no, not that way. Girl, over here.
You know I can see you, right?
Don't worry, Ellie. I got this.
I think I heard something.
All right, Ellie, let's get him.
And the way she grows is you can see it. At one point in the game, Joel and Ellie are separated from each other for an extended time, I think, while she's taking care of him. And every point after that, you see not only in the way she talks and acts in the story, but you see a noticeable difference in the way that she helps you during fighting in actual gameplay. She'll give you like a med pack, or she'll stab someone to the throat, and like it'll be over for them. And it's very impressive the way that they develop her. And you're almost like, it's almost like your daughter. I mean, the whole idea, I think, is that it's Joel's daughter. He lost his daughter. He's adopting someone he's learning to care about. And you get this sense of pride, like, hey, I taught her that after she cut someone's head off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest part with Final on character development, I think most of it, if not all of it, is really happening with Joel. We see that Joel starts with losing his daughter, right? And so, you know, he's sad about it. And obviously, Ellie becomes his daughter, right? He's eventually going to live and fight for her. At first, it's okay. I'm selfish. I do things for myself, and I'm just trying to get a quick buck off of this trade-off. I'm gonna smuggle her over here and come back over here, and then I'm done. Then I'm gonna do my own thing. But he starts to develop more than just for himself. He develops to get things done for Ellie and to bring him into his world. And now he's sort of, in a sense, adopted her, and now that's his daughter. Mm-hmm. And he grows in that way. I don't think he ever becomes the good character, and Paul doesn't quite agree with me, which is fine. I don't think he becomes the protagonist. I think we're playing as a character who is in a very gray area, who is technically the antagonist fighting against the good guys. Now, Paul doesn't agree. He thinks what I think the Fireflies are doing is ultimately a good thing. I think that the quest for, you might kill a little girl, it might not even work, but I think the quest that we're trying to get that 3% chance to try and have this cure. It might kill her, it might not work, but we need to have that, give humanity a chance. And Joel, although he knows this, although Ellie has made that decision for herself, which I think she can make for herself, I think that she should be allowed to do that, and I think that because he does those things, it's for himself. Now, obviously, after his daughter dies, we get the scoop in that he's been a part of like raids, and he's done sort of the bad things that the raiders are doing to him and Ellie. He's been on both sides, are his own words. And so he sort of he falls from that grace, and he becomes that bad character. And I don't think he ever gains it back. I think that just because he's, has this little girl with him, he did those things for selfish reasons, and now he's protecting her for selfish reasons. I don't think they're for good reasons.
Okay, hold on. I got to stop you. Okay, because obviously, like you said, I definitely disagree. Okay, because here's why, and here's my reasoning for disagreeing. If you don't know exactly what Drake is talking about, spoiler alert. Okay, now that you're ready, at the very end of the game, Joel ends up taking Ellie to the Fireflies to try to make that vaccine, right? Because they believe that she's the cure, or at least carrying the cure. But it turns out that you end up having to fight the Fireflies because Joel realizes that the only way to create the vaccine from Ellie is to have Ellie killed in order to, like, I don't know. They didn't really explain it, but like drain her blood. I don't know. Whatever.
I think it was her brain. Something in her brain that has to cure.
Oh, yeah.
They can pull it out, but if they pull it out, she dies.
That's right. So you're faced with this conundrum, right? It's humanity. It's humanity versus this person that has figuratively become like a daughter to you, right? And so my argument would be, hey, in the very beginning, you saw the soft side of Joel. You saw him kind of going about his day. He's living a normal life. He's the father of a daughter. You don't see much of a mother, so that's not something that they talk about. So I assume that he's a single dad. He's taking care of his business. You see like a deep emotional state when he loses his daughter. Fast forward 20 years later, and through almost the entirety of the game, you feel a hardening, right? He's hardened himself. Right? He's like this tough soul now because you make the argument because he has to be, because you have to be to thrive in a world like that. Now, through your adventure with Ellie, he again softens, right? And it's because of his circumstance that he's able to kind of regain a little bit of his humanity by with the connection and the relationship, establishing a relationship with Ellie, right? You see the good in him again. And that's where I would disagree with Drake. I think at the end, the choice that he makes to pretty much slay everybody and then steal Ellie back.
And then a flamethrower on a doctor.
Okay, you used the flamethrower on the doctor. You didn't have to do that.
She was in the way.
Okay,
on the ground.
So yeah, you steal Ellie away, and I think that, and the part that you and I haven't talked about prior to making this video was the fact that not only did he steal her away, and that may have been selfish, right? There's that whole argument. But then he's confronted by Ellie at the end of the game, and he lies to her. And what does he say? He says that, there were a whole bunch of people like you there, and it didn't work. It was all for naught.
Yeah. And lying is always wrong. Therefore, Joel is wrong.
I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do.
Final point on my view of this, I think that the motivations for actions by now, you can say, oh, he saved a life. The motivations were ultimately selfish, and that's important, and I don't think that he's a great protagonist to try and base ourselves off of. The final point on that. Anything else to say on character development?
No. As far as character development, no. I think we've covered a lot of the game, and if you're new to the series, I would definitely recommend checking it out. We've done our best to do it justice in this brief conversation, just roughly 15-minute conversation. But that's not going to do it unless you actually experience it. Now, if you are new and you're kind of just like hanging out up to this point, it is time that we want to share our thoughts, maybe our aspirations and expectations for the next one. Now, a lot of news has already been put out about what to expect in the next one. We've even seen a little bit of gameplay on it. And what we've seen from it is in all the gameplay, we're not seeing any Joel. Like, yeah, he shows up in like a brief cinematic sort of portion of the trailer, but in everything that looks gameplay-esque, we're seeing Ellie. So Ellie looks to be your main character in this. We know that, what else do we know? We know that she is traveling from Wyoming, where they met back up with Joel's brother, right, which we didn't actually mention in that. Shame on us.
Tommy.
Right, and then for sure, something motivates her to travel and seek vengeance, right? Seek revenge all the way out to Seattle, where the game supposedly takes most of the game is played out in Seattle. So that's what we know. I'll start with kind of my first expectation of the game. First and foremost, I expect another fantastic story, right? Before we get into anything else, I expect a good motivation for leaving a safe place. It needs to make sense, right? Like, you have a well-established camp in what was his name? Sam? What was Joel's brother's name?
Tommy.
Why did I want to Sam? I don't know.
I said Tommy.
So Tommy, right? So they have this well-established camp. There needs to be a good motivation for leaving. Like, and if there's not, if we're just kind of willy-nilly starting a brand new adventure, I'm going to feel empty carrying out these quests because it's not one of those things where like I'll disagree with the catalyst to the adventure. It'll be like, yo, that just feels empty, right? And the last thing you want is a soulless game. So as far as my expectation, story comes first, and we need to experience something that's great.
Right. I completely agree. I think story, I mean, that's why we showed up. That's why we're here. That's why we're at the banquet. We want the narrative. Now, there are other things I think that The Last of Us didn't necessarily fall short, but could have been improved upon. Aspects of the gameplay, I think that human AI needs to be a little bit better. It needs to be a little bit more. I think stealth, just on its as a principle, needs to be just more effective and more, immersive. If I throw a bottle, you shouldn't be tricked by that if you just saw me shoot at you. Something I haven't brought up. I don't like puzzles in games. I allow room for things I don't like. Right. I think puzzles can be a good thing. I think that some of the puzzles were basic. Now, not necessarily that they weren't easy. I think they were repetitive. I think that, okay, let me find the 2x4. Let me find, and in every water situation, let me find the pallet so I can get her to walk on it.
Can I just pause?
She can't swim.
My second expectation will be that she's able to swim.
Which we saw in the trailer. I think, yeah, she could swim.
Okay.
I'm sure, because she was, she's 19 at that point.
Yeah, listen, if you're in a zombie apocalypse and you can't swim, then you have bigger problems. You know what I mean? But yeah, to piggyback on one of the things that you were expecting is better AI, artificial intelligence. What we need. Okay, so something that him and I discussed off camera was the AI in the first one. The human interaction was not good, right? And you could tell from the skit that we had, it was laughable. It was so bad that we literally had to make a skit making fun of it. Now, your interactions with the zombies in stealth is excusable, right? It's probably the same AI, to be honest with you. I don't think there's any difference between zombie and human AI. You're able to trick the zombies really, really easy, but it's like they're brainless. Yeah, you know, I expect more from the humans. Mm-hmm. You know, so I want. How did I say it? I want people, like, I want to hunt people, right? It sounds so weird saying out loud. In this video game, I want to do the stalking, right? Because you end up having to, like, stealth kill people and sneak around, right? I want to have to do that while also feeling the threat of something smart enough to do that to me, right? That would in this case build something that is so tense and so just dramatic, like, and it would just build the immersion of the game so much more. Like, we can't just have like these aimless human AI anymore that are tricked by a bottle. Now, I don't expect them to get rid of the bottle and brick throwing mechanic, because
it's a good mechanic on its own. Mm-hmm. I think in practice sometimes it was a little silly. Because I stood up, go down, throw, and now you're looking 30 yards that way. You just saw me.
Right. Well, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Yeah, I mean, you need to make sure, like, you're causing distraction, right? Like, it's I almost want to argue it's like a symbol, right? Like you picking up a brick or a bottle and throwing it to create a distraction is like a symbol of saying like it's like very Sam Fisher-esque of whatever those mechanics from the original Splinter Cells were. It's all the same thing. And once you kind of get that through your head as a gamer, it becomes a little more excusable that they're using like this very generic stealth system, which is, it's perfectly fine, might be. I expect the bricks, I expect the bottles. Do I think it makes the game a whole lot better? Probably not, but I don't think it destroys the game whatsoever. So I believe that mechanic is probably still going to be in there.
To kind of close out on things that we want to see from the game, personally, I want to see, and I know you might not agree with this either, I want to see Joel's arc completed. I don't think his arc is done. I don't think.
Can I ask you?
He's a completed character.
What do you think is a completion of his arc?
He has to die. He has to be sacrificed
because
and
you
die.
think he's bad.
That is the price.
But if I disagree,
the ultimate sacrifice.
And this is where we're going to split, because if I disagree and I say that he's a compromised good character and you believe that he's a bad character, then we're going to have two different beliefs on how that arc should complete itself, right? And then we're going to be split in fan base on whether it was a good one or a bad one or whatever the case is. Now, you could just say, yeah, I want a completion of his arc. Perfectly fine. But you damn well better be happy when it
I want a
comes,
completion of his
okay?
arc that makes him, that redeems him for what he has done. That redeems him, because Ellie's not a redeemer. That's another selfish act. I want him to be redeemed. And now you had something else.
So to be clear, there's death, there's redemption in death, right? Like your sacrificial
he doesn't
death.
have to die, but I was waiting in the game, and you saw, I said this 1,000, I was playing the game, I'm like, okay, Joel's going to die at the end, because he has to die, otherwise, I don't know if it's good enough. And I don't want to say not good enough, but there has to be that, he's very selfish, and maybe not death, he has to do something that's not selfish to redeem himself from all the selfish that's on his back.
Right.
That's what I think.
So, but it doesn't necessarily mean die. He can redeem himself and stay alive.
It'd be really easy, though, to make him die. And no, I love the character. I really do.
Do you think they'll cop out?
I think
you think the writers will cop out?
I think it's time.
Gee whiz.
He's old.
He's an old peopleist.
He's an old dog. You know, sometimes it's done with.
All right.
One more thing.
Yeah. I think the last thing that I really want is to piggyback off him again, because his is more character development. He wants the end of a developed character, right? And with Ellie, who we are pretty sure we're going to be experiencing as sort of the main character of this one, this game takes place 5 years down the line, and I want to catch up. And it doesn't need to be quickly through the game. I want to catch up in the space between the age of 14 and 19. I want everything that we missed, right? I don't want to miss anything, because it's like when you've played the first one, you feel attached to this person. I want to see her grow up. You know what I mean? And 14 to 19, that's a pivotal. That's pivotal time. I don't want to miss that. So fill me in, Naughty Dog. I want to be filled in on this. And on top of that, I want more growth from the beginning, from present on, right, to the end of the game. So 19 years to however long the game lasts, I want more development, whether that means a general maturation, if that's an emotional development, if that's like a romantic development, whatever the case is, right? Like I just want to see this character grow and thrive, and please don't kill her. That's yeah, please don't kill her.
Well, no, she's too young. She has some more tricks to learn.
All right, guys. Well, that is going to conclude our recap and furthering our expectations for the next Last of Us. If you're as excited about The Last of Us as we are, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit the notification bell so you get alerted every single time we go live with another video. Also, get down to the comment section. We said a lot of stuff that's worth arguing about, more than likely.
Yeah.
So if you have, if you want to, ding one of our bells in the sense like, hey, I agree with Drake, I agree with Paul, or maybe I disagree with both of you idiots, make sure you say something down in the comment section. That said, thank you so much for clicking on the video. We will go live with I'm pretty sure we have a gameplay reaction for The Last of Us 2 coming up. So that should be very, very soon. Look out for that.
That's definitely done.
It'll be done soon, I promise. Thanks for clicking on the video, guys. Peace.
Little pre-production.
Yeah.
Look at Ellie. Sick moves, bro. Oh, yeah. That's good. It's pretty much all Ellie's animations in one video. Maybe? Yeah, maybe we shouldn't yell at Ellie.
Mama's gonna hear it. You got a gun out there?
Son of a...
One more time. I'll get it. One more
Come, give me the shit. It's easy.
time.
Come on, man.
I'm not trying to laugh.
Dang it. Focus, man.
Give me a 3. Don't give me a 5. Give me a 3.
A 3 count?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm not going to say the 1.
Oh,